Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to share this video with you today. It is my process doing this portrait of Watkin Tudor Jones, aka Ninja, from the South African band Die Antwoord. And I'm going to be sharing a lot more tips and detail in this video, so it's going to be a little bit longer. I really hope you enjoy it. So here I am just tracing my sketch onto my smooth Bristol with my light box. I try to keep my pencil lines really light so that the graphite doesn't smear all over the place when I'm putting the waxy pencils on top of it. And I'm just fixing up the sketch a little bit more. And I like to tape my paper to a piece of board. Even though it's not a painting, I just really like the clean edges because I will be using some pencils and some pastels that kind of smear. So I just want that edge to stay really, really clean, and I peel it off at the very end after I've sprayed a fixative over the top. So just for the eye area here, I didn't speed it up as much and I zoomed in a lot so that you could really see what I'm doing. I feel like the eye area is so important for this kind of portrait, especially for this one because I tried to make him sort of in focus in the center of his face, but then the edges that are receding back, like the edges of his face, his hair, and his shirt are a lot less detailed and more blurry so that he's sort of emerging from the background. Alright, so like I said, the eye area is extremely important for these kinds of portraits, and I definitely can improve a lot on my skill, but I have already improved so much from where I started. This is actually only the 5th colored pencil portrait I've ever done. I'm actually new to colored pencils, so I'm kind of coming from a place of having just learned some of these things, so I feel like it might be helpful if you're also just starting with this medium. When I was in high school, I think I tried colored pencils like literally one time, and I hated them because I didn't know how to use them at all. I thought they were just like crayons, basically. I didn't like the texture of them, but really I just was using them completely wrong, and I didn't understand how to blend them or anything like that. And I have not touched a colored pencil for years and years until about 5 months ago or so. I did my first colored pencil portrait, which is actually of Yolandi, who's also in the band Die Antwoord. So this is sort of like, that was my first one, and it came out better than I thought it would. And then I've done a few more, and now I feel like I've improved so much, so I wanted to do Ninja so that I had both of them side by side. Anyway, so with the eyes, the reference photo I was looking at for the center of his face, I used a reference photo for his face, like not his hair or anything else, but just his face. And I kind of made up his hair from several photos, and I completely made up like his neck and t-shirt. And I also added tattoos that weren't visible in the reference photo. Anyway, so his eyes I think are brown in real life. In the photo they looked pretty much black because of the lighting. So I wanted to keep them really dark. There was definitely a ring light being used as the lighting source in the photo I was looking at. So I wanted that ring light to really pop in the middle. So I used that white colored pencil first before I put the color of the iris around it, because the white colored pencils usually have a lot more wax in them, especially with the Prismacolors or any other wax-based pencil. So that wax kind of like blocks the other colors from getting on that area. So first I kind of sketched out the shape of everything. I went over the pupil with a very dark blue and then a dark brown. And I like doing that more than using black because black can appear pretty flat. But when you use very dark blue and very dark brown, one is cool and one is warm, and they're both very dark. So it just adds a lot more richness and depth than if you were to use just a flat black. especially with colored pencils where the blacks really don't get as deep as you might want them to. They're really just more of a very dark gray. Another important part is that the whites of the eyes are not really white at all. Even in bright lighting, they don't appear very white, but in this photo there was more dramatic lighting, so there's even more shadowing from his upper eyelids, or casting a shadow onto the top half of the whites of his eyes. And then also the pinkness of the skin around the eyes reflects more of a pink light into the whites of the eyes. So there are some parts where I use a very pale grayish pink in the whites of the eyes, and then I kind of blend it all together with an actual white pencil. For his irises, which, like I said, I believe he has brown eyes, but they appeared black in this photo, I also used the dark blue and the brown to layer to get sort of a black effect, but then over top of that, to differentiate the irises from the black pupils, I put a little bit of a very dark red to bring a little more warmth in the bottom half of his irises, so that even though they do look black, they sort of are reading more as a brown colored eye that is in very dark lighting. The reference photo I was using did not have this much red or yellow around his eyes, but when I do colored pencil portraits, I'm not going for hyperrealism or just making an exact copy of the photo I'm looking at. I like to push the colors, push the saturation, and make it a little more dramatic. I love watching those channels on YouTube that are basically like a human photo printer that are like, they copy the photo exactly. I mean, it's amazing. I don't have that skill level for sure, but also in my own work, I don't think I would want to do that even if I did have that skill level, because it's just not as interesting to me as adding my own take on the photo. And also, I usually change the hair and the clothes of the person I'm drawing, regardless of who they are or what photo I'm using. So I like to really push the purples around the eyes. Most people have somewhat of a dark circle around their eye or in the space between the eye and the nose. And that darkness can be kind of a darker brown, can be kind of bluish or purple. No matter what your skin color, that area is usually a bit of a cooler tone than the rest of your skin. And with someone with pretty light skin, like Ninja, I like to really bring out the purple. It's not very flattering, but that's not really why I do portraits. I like the gritty vibe that it gives to really push those details a little bit further. And maybe that's why I feel like I prefer drawing men in this style, because it almost seems rude to draw a female and give her really dark purple circles around her eyes and exaggerate the pores and everything like I do with my male subjects. I don't know. Anyway, so I pushed the purple around his eyes to be pretty saturated. A lot of people have like a greenish or yellowish tone kind of near their eyes too. And then very close to the eyes, it's usually a little bit more red or pink. So I did push that to be more saturated as well. And then the lower eyelid, I tried to give a feeling of depth and of it coming forward by highlighting the center of that lower eyelid with white in between the areas that are more reddish. With the nose, it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. I tried to do a highlight down the center of it and have the sides of the nose a little bit more blurry so that they are kind of receding back into the rest of his face, so that his nose isn't just kind of slapped on his face with no context or depth. I hope I succeeded in that regard. One of my favorite things to draw with men is the stubble and beard, all the facial hair. It's so interesting the way that it grows in different patterns on the face, so I really like to explore that. Now what you're seeing here is me basically freaking out about this forehead. This is, actually I haven't mentioned yet, I've used pan pastels in this portrait for the first time. I've never used pan pastels before. If you don't know what they are, it's like a soft pastel, so like a chalky pastel, but it comes in a little pan, almost like makeup, like a blush or something like that, and you apply it with this tool that you see me using here. So I used that for a lot of the forehead, and then I pulled out the details with colored pencil, and at first I was really freaking out and thinking, oh my gosh, I just ruined this, but I actually really like how it came out in the end, and I really like the pan pastels for the hair. I feel like painting the hair on with the pan pastels was very similar to how a digital artist would paint hair. You kind of just add swipes of color where you want them, so an area that's generally lighter, like sort of the center of his hair there, is a little bit lighter because it's coming forward and it's rounded the way that it's styled. So you just kind of slap on a lighter color there, and then at the end with a finer tool, like in my case colored pencil, you pull out a few strands at the end to add the detail. And it's very similar to how I've seen digital artists paint hair. For the neck also, I kind of used a similar strategy by using the pan pastels and then also using colored pencil for the lines and details. Because I'm using Bristol, it's really not the right paper to use with pan pastels, it's too smooth, and I knew that from the start, but I really just wanted to use them to blend and blur out my pencils, and I ended up using the pan pastels more than I thought I would on this piece because they ended up working really well. They stuck a little bit better to a base that already had the waxy pencil. So you see there with the shirt, I just filled out the shirt with the black and gray pencil, and then I went over it with a deep gray pan pastel. And the background there, I just used a gray pan pastel and did the whole background with just a flat wash of color at first, and it took like 5 or 10 minutes. If I did that with a colored pencil, it would have taken hours to get it to be blended to the level that it is already blended with the pan pastels just automatically. So that made me really happy. It was very satisfying to just get that background on there so quickly and then be able to decide what I wanted to do with the background from there. So with the hair, I just kept adding a little bit more depth with a very dark blue in the shadows, and he has dark brown hair, so I was adding dark brown, but I ended up using quite a lot of dark blue as well. And I'm just adding some more details around the edges, and then I put in the corners of the background, I added a dark brown to the gray to get sort of a darker vignette effect, and then I went in with a light purple to really kind of blur out the background and have the background coming onto his shoulder at the top of his head so that I wanted the effect of him kind of emerging from the background. So here's my final result. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe found some of my tips useful. I really enjoyed making it, and make sure that you don't forget to subscribe and watch another video if you want. Thank you so much for all your support and all the new people who've come over and subscribed. I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. So please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.